The HOA thought they could scare me into silence, but they had no idea they were about to start a war they couldn't win. The lake was wrapped in silver fog, the kind that swallows sound and turns every ripple into a secret. My boots whispered against the dock's weathered boards, coffee steaming in my hand. This was my sanctuary, or so I believed. 3 days later, peace shattered. The knock was sharp, military in rhythm. On my porch stood 3 people in matching navy polos, Shady Oaks Lakeside HOA stitched across their chests like a badge of authority. Their leader, Karen Whitlow, smiled the way a cat does before it pounces. Karen's voice was precise, cold, and dripping with superiority. She claimed my dock, standing since the late 90s, was illegal. Too long, wrong materials, unapproved. Her words weren't an invitation to discuss, they were a verdict. I laughed, not out of disrespect, but disbelief. She claimed the HOA had jurisdiction over public water. That's when her eyes glinted, a predator spotting prey. The following days weren't peaceful. Golf carts lingered at my curb, cameras clicked from the shadows, neighbors I hadn't met yet drove by twice as slow, eyes fixed on my property like I was under investigation. Letters arrived like clockwork. First a courtesy notice, then a formal violation, and finally a certified threat to place a lien on my home, all over a dock they didn't own and couldn't regulate. I walked into their monthly meeting calm, wearing khakis and a polo. When my turn came, I laid out permits, legal maps, and a statement from the State Water Authority. The room shifted. Neighbors whispered, eyes darted. Karen's smile faltered. A few days later, I came home to find a bright yellow notice taped dead center on my front door. This time it wasn't about the dock, it was my lawn. Apparently 2 inches of grass was now a crime. An older neighbor named Frank told me he'd seen an HOA board member crouched in my yard at dawn, ruler in hand, photographing grass blades. My stomach twisted. This wasn't enforcement, it was obsession. I started making calls to old colleagues in environmental enforcement, to legal contacts, to a journalist I trusted. If the HOA wanted war, I'd fight on ground they couldn't control, the court of public opinion.
One of my calls paid off faster than I expected. A contact at the Department of Environmental Conservation confirmed a troubling rumor. Shady Oaks HOA had been filing false environmental complaints against select homeowners. And the pattern? Every property targeted was lakeside and for sale. The journalist I called, Marla Reyes, dug deeper. She uncovered bank transfers between the HOA treasurer and a development company known for buying prime waterfront properties. The picture was forming. Force out the owners, take the land cheap, sell to developers for profit. One night, I heard a faint metallic click outside my gate. I stepped quietly onto the porch, camera in hand, and caught Dave, the compliance officer, snooping near my shed. When my flash went off, he bolted like a thief in the night. I set up motion-activated trail cameras, camouflaged in the trees, pointed at my property's edges. If they were willing to bend the law, I'd make sure they tripped over it in 4K. 2 nights later, the footage came in. Sheila, the treasurer, spray painting my dock with bright orange markings, laughing with another board member. It was all I needed. The war was about to go public. At the next meeting, I played the footage on a projector. Gasps rippled through the room. Karen tried to shut it down, claiming it was taken out of context, but the neighbors were no longer buying it. Marla published her article, front page, complete with the dock footage, bank records, and whistleblower statements. TV crews showed up the next day. Suddenly, Karen wasn't the one knocking on doors, the reporters were. My attorney filed a civil suit for harassment, defamation, and property damage. Simultaneously, the state attorney general opened an investigation into HOA corruption and fraud. The sound of Karen's world crumbling was almost peaceful. Karen tried one last desperate move, accusing me of endangering community safety by keeping the dock. But this time, the board refused to back her. Her allies had vanished. The investigation ended with 3 board members charged with fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The HOA was dissolved, and the neighborhood voted to form a new, voluntary association without power over the lake. My dock stayed, my peace returned. They thought they could scare me into silence. Instead, they exposed themselves. And now the lake is free, not just for me, but for everyone who calls it home.